So what we want to talk about today is camera to cloud. It's a fast emerging workflow, and Atomos are playing a pretty big part in it. So what we want to talk about today is the workflow of camera to cloud and what does it actually mean, and the products that Atomos make that enable this workflow for everyone. So first of all, we say, well, why camera to cloud? And I think it's also, what is camera to cloud? I think it's amazing in the last year since the camera to cloud sort of ecosystem with our products and Frame.io particularly have expanded, how quickly people are getting used to the term. But for those that don't know the term, camera to cloud is a whole workflow that's based on getting content super quick from a set, from a studio, from a camera, directly to the cloud, so someone could start using and collaborating that content almost immediately, at the same time as recording locally. So as we go through the workflows, you'll see the different types of way that camera to cloud can be used. But really, it's just about content creation and getting that content creation anywhere in the world that people can use and collaborate with it for either annotation and making comments and notes, or actually editing that content and doing something with it almost instantaneously. And that will become quite clear as we talk about it with the likes of social media and digital channels, where a lot of companies are now using this as a vehicle for getting their content for their event directly to the cloud, so that people can start getting it on social media probably within 15-20 minutes of the event actually happening. And really, all for camera to cloud, all you need is some Atomos hardware for connectivity with any camera, any HDMI or SDI camera, and an internet connection. And that's obviously the beauty of the cloud, that we use the internet, and the internet is available pretty well in most places in one form or another. And then we can connect to our partners with our sort of gateway to connect to different services, and camera to cloud is one of those services. So before we go too much further, let me just quickly talk about the Atomos physical products that enable this to happen. So in front of me here, I've got the Shogun Connect. So the Shogun Connect is a 7-inch super bright HDR monitor. The Shogun has been around for a while in various forms, and it's a really accomplished monitoring tool in itself. People love Atomos products. I mean, the history of Atomos, we've come from a sort of a generation of having super cost-effective, high-quality on-camera monitors, on-camera monitor recorders, standalone monitors, and switchers. And really, part of this new connected workflow, we have 3 connected products that have really been on the market now for just over a year. We have the Shogun Connect, which is the fully integrated 7-inch version. And when I say integrated, it's got all the regular tools that you'd have, as I just said, the 7-inch super bright HDR monitor. It has all the waveform and all the tools that a content creator would need, whether it's scopes, RGB parade, all of those tools that people would need. But what we've done with it, and as well as being able to record in lots of different flavors of codecs. So you can record in ProRes, ProRes RAW, DNX, H.265. So it's a Swiss Army knife of being able to record in any codec that you like, edit-friendly codecs, which is why people tend to use our products. We have affordable media. We use an SSD on our products, which is a very affordable way of getting good bang for buck for the media storage. And with the integrated connectivity, we now have best-of-breed Wi-Fi. So we have Wi-Fi 6 on the Shogun Connect. And we have some technology called AirGlue, which is a wireless sync technology for synchronizing everything together. And that's super important when we come onto camera to cloud as well as multi-camera use. So all of these things combined, that's the Shogun Connect. And then we then thought that at the same time as launching that, we have hundreds of thousands of Ninja users already out there. So this is the Ninja 5 Plus, and we have the Ninja 5. And this has an expansion port on the back. So with the expansion port, it allows us to add modular accessories onto the products. So what we thought we'd do is, because we wanted to bring in all of these customers and people that were used to using a Ninja, they love the Ninja, we've updated it many, many times over the last few years. We wanted to bring these into the connected world. So we developed the Atomos Connect module, which seamlessly just fits into the expansion port on the back. And that turns it into a fully integrated product, just like the Shogun Connect. And it really is a 5-inch form factor of the Shogun Connect. And then we have another product which I don't have with you here, but you can see on the screen, called the Zato Connect. Now the Zato Connect is a really powerful, it's a tiny little powerhouse. It's at the lower end of the price point. All of these products are really affordable. The Zato Connect is an amazing gateway into camera to cloud and other cloud services within Atomos. But it also has some other tricks up its sleeve, like it records to an SD card instead of the SSD. It has a little audio mixer in there. You can insert graphics. You can do picture-in-picture. And you can stream directly from it as well. So you can take an HDMI input. You could take a webcam input. But it also can be a webcam output. And you can stream from it without the need for a computer. So there's also, you can do a whole load of other things that are slightly different. But in the connected camera-to-cloud workflow, it's part of the family. So we have this trio of products that now sort of can be part of this connected camera-to-cloud workflow. Before I move on to this slide, let me just move on to the web browser. So I think it's important to sort of see how do we connect our products to these cloud services like camera-to-cloud. Now, obviously, in camera-to-cloud, we have an integration that was announced a long time ago, and really successful integration with Frame.io, which is owned by Adobe now. So it's Adobe Camera to Cloud powered by Frame.io. That's what's been working for. We've been working with them now for over a year, and that's super successful. An amazing platform, Frame.io, and we've just launched literally a couple of weeks ago another camera to cloud integration with Sony C Media Cloud. So again, another camera to cloud platform. So there's two options there for the user for our Atomos user to choose where their destination, where does their content actually go. So if we look at this here, to enable this, we actually have what we call Atomos Cloud Studio. So Atomos Cloud Studio is our cloud service. So that's the service that all of our devices connect to. And we keep it that way because then it's super simple. So we have our own devices. They can connect to Atomos Cloud Studio. So you set up an Atomos Cloud Studio account. And then once you're in the Atomos Cloud Studio account, you can decide where do you want the content to actually go. And then you can choose many different things, of which one of them is camera to cloud, which is the topic for today, but there are many other things that you can do with our connected devices as well as camera to cloud. So we've tried to keep it as flexible as possible. Just as a quick overview, we can connect this product, as we have now, via the internet into Atomos Cloud Studio, and we can directly stream to it, to any of the streaming platforms, to any custom RTMP destination. We've just launched a new service which will be going in beta very shortly, called Atomos Edit, which is a web browser-based edit platform where the content can go directly off the camera, directly through our connected device, straight onto the timeline of a web browser edit system. And that's super powerful for getting content out really quickly. We have the camera to cloud, say we have Sony C Media Cloud, we have Frame.io camera to cloud. And then we also have a live production environment, which is completely different, where you can use this as a live camera source into a live production, where all of the tools for the live production that you would normally find sitting in an outside broadcast truck are all virtualized in the cloud. And this just becomes a camera input with a viewfinder into that cloud production, where this is a camera source that could be vision mixed, graphics overlaid, the audio mixed. I could plug in a headphone into here, listen to the director talking in a different location anywhere in the world, and I could talk back to that director or anyone else on the crew. So it suddenly becomes something completely different. If we then, let me just go back to these slides. So if we go to back to camera to cloud, so we can really understand what the workflow is. The original concept for camera to cloud was that you would have the concept of relinking a proxy file or a lower quality file with a hero file or the master file. And that was really how it sort of started, and that's really the concept for the workflow that's been really sort of originated from episodic TV and more sort of scripted TV and movies. And that workflow is still happening now, and that was really where it all started from. So the concept of that was this slide here, where you effectively, using our device, we are able to connect to any camera. We're obviously connecting to a nice mirrorless camera here, but it could be an SDI camera, it could be literally any HDMI or SDI source. So really, for the Shogun in this situation, the Shogun Connect to be the gateway, we can take any source in to be able to go into the cloud. And what we're doing for this sort of post-production workflow that I was talking about, which is more the episodic and the scripted workflow, is that once you press record or trigger on the device, we're recording 2 files on the SSD here. We're recording 2 files. We're recording a really high quality file that we can select what codec, and let's say it's in ProRes. And we could record that as a 4K file, maybe a 4K 30 file. And at the same time, we're recording an H.265 file, which again is an HD 265 file. Both of those are actually getting recorded at the same time on the SSD with matching timecode and metadata and file names. So you've got those files, they're backed up, they're locally on the drive. But at the same time in this camera to cloud workflow, once we're connected from here into our destination, and let's say it's Frame.io, we start recording, we stop recording, and once we've stopped recording, a copy of the H.265 file, which is the HD 30 file, is going up to the cloud and being handed over to Frame.io, and you can choose where that project is, where the content goes to in a certain project. We'll run through a demo so you can see this all working on the screen. But whilst that's going up to Frame.io, the high quality file is still, the hero file is still on the SSD, as well as the H.265 file. So what that means is that, immediately, once I've pressed stop, that content, someone anywhere in the world can start editing that content. And then maybe it could be that content is actually good enough quality for them to be able to use, which we'll see on another workflow. But then in the episodic TV and maybe the movie type of workflow is that you could start the edit, you could compile your edit, and then later on, when you've got the high-res content off the drive, which you could just upload, either physically give to the editor or ship to the editor or send upload to the editor, you have the 4K UHD file, and you can then just relink that automatically with the proxy file that you've already been working to. And because everything matches, because we're in control of everything, we've recorded both files ourselves, then everything matches, and it's just literally a few button presses, and you've got your edit, and it's all finished, and suddenly it becomes a nice ProRes 4K 30 edit. So super flexible how you use it, and that's really how Camera to Cloud started. But when we started seeing people using it, and say we've been live for about a year now with the system, we suddenly realized that people were using it in a different way. They're using it in that episodic TV scripted way, but they're also finding real benefits in using Camera to Cloud for different ways. And that is getting content quickly edited and on social channels. We'll sort of hit some workflows, some examples of this towards the end, but what they were doing was literally almost ignoring the 4K file that you've recorded, the 4K ProRes file. Even though we're recording it, you've always got it, it's always backed up. But when the H.265 file goes up to the cloud and people start using it and editing it, that's the file that they're actually using for their purpose. Now, it could be on social media, it could be on their digital channel, and you can think of many different examples where that would be super useful. It could be a live event, it could be news, it could be a backstory to a major launch, a corporate launch. So the concept of getting some really high quality, HD footage, which looks great on people's smartphones and tablets, getting that to the cloud and out within 10 or 15 minutes of the event happening is super powerful. So really that's sort of the 2 different ways that you can use it. What we've done within Atomos to try and enable that workflow to make it even easier, that second workflow where I was talking about how it's used, is that we've also developed our own technology that sits in between our device and the cloud to allow us to, which we call progressive upload technology. So that means that rather than historically on a lot of some other camera to cloud devices, the content only goes from here up into the cloud once you've pressed stop. Now that's fine if it's short takes. If you are doing episodic TV or something and you're doing half a minute takes, that's all fine. But of course, if you're doing a long form record, like it is a live event, and you want to keep sending chunks up, then it can take a long time. If you're doing an hour take, it could take a long time once you press stop for that hour take to then go up. So what we do with our progressive file upload is that as we're actually recording, we're sending those chunks of data already up to Atomos Cloud Studio. So by the time you press stop, 99% of it is already in the cloud. We just close off the file and hand it over to either Frame.io or Sony C Media. And really that hour or hour and a half take could be on the timeline within a minute and a half. So it's as quick as that. So this progressive upload technology is something that we've sort of developed, and it's sort of tied in with our Atomos Cloud Studio subscription tiers. So we've made it very affordable for people to use this type of technology. You don't have to have a subscription to get started. You can use Camera to Cloud with a free subscription, a free account with Atomos Cloud Studio. But then once you go up to one of our most basic tiers, which is literally sort of £5, €5, $5 a month, you have this progressive file upload technology. And then as you sort of move up through the tiers, you can have more options on the quality that you're sending as your primary file, which it would have been called proxy, but in this case it's not a proxy file anymore. It's your hero file, it's your master file. And really when you can literally get to having a super high quality H.265 file. I mean, we can set a mode on here to record at 30 megabits per second, which of course, an HD 30 megabits per second H.265 file looks really nice. So that's how people are starting to use it. And I would say, we're probably finding now with our use cases that maybe 75-80% of people using this, and there are a lot of thousands of users that have started using it in the last year that we're seeing on activity, are probably using it in this way of using it as the primary file. And I guess you can see that because I guess it's more of the mass market, and that's really the power of Camera to Cloud. I've got a slide here for social media workflow. So if you remember just slightly earlier, I'd sort of touched on the fact that not only can we send the content from our connected device to a Camera to Cloud solution, but we can also send it to Atomos Edit, and that's just a new service that we're just rolling out. So keep sort of tuned to atomos.com, because that is going into beta very shortly, and that will allow this device to get content directly on a timeline that you can edit, you can top and tail, you can add graphics and do some really nice editing functions on a web browser, and then directly publish that to social media. So that's an even quicker way of getting content off a device and into the cloud, edited and published straight to social media. So that's a slightly separate workflow from Camera to Cloud as such. But we definitely see that being an important one, because as we're seeing Camera to Cloud being used in a more sort of social media type of fashion, we think the editing on the timeline editing is going to be really good as well from the web browser. So what I think we'll do now is I can just show you, which hopefully will bring it to life for you. I can just show you how do you get this into the cloud and how do you get it onto a timeline, and we can into Frame.io, and just see how easy that is. So I think what we can see here, I have screen with that, yeah. So basically this is if we just sort of go back to basics slightly, all we've got here, we've got an Atomos Connect, the Shogun Connect connected to the internet. So we're just literally connected on Wi-Fi 6 to the Wi-Fi here in the hall, and I've just got my HDMI from my Nikon Z9 feeding it. What we've got here is that what we have to do now, and we only have to do this once. This is we have to basically pair this device or into my own personal Cloud Studio account. And that's how we can then decide what we want to do with it. So you can see here that I've already paired this device, and I've simply done that by, if I go on the device here, you can't see the screen, but if I go on the device and you just go into the Connect tab, there are 3 words, and that's all we need to connect this to Atomos Cloud Studio. We were very particular when we devised the whole system. We didn't want a cloud service that meant that people had to understand how IP networks work or IP addresses. We just wanted a super simple system of it just working. So 3 words is a really good way of connecting stuff together. It's super secure. We obviously have to be approved for security with a lot of our partners. It's a really secure way of doing it, but having 3 words is a really easy way of being able to pair a device with a Cloud Studio account, but anywhere in the world. You could be on the phone to someone and tell them what the 3 words are. You could text them it. So once you have those magic 3 words and that are living on this device, I can just press this pair button here, and I could type those 3 words in, give the thing a friendly name. I've just called it Shogun Media City or whatever, I can't remember what it was, Shogun Connect, and then it literally pairs. And now, effectively, you can see from the screen here, I've ended up with sort of almost like a virtual partner for the device. We can see on my Cloud Studio account that it's a Shogun Connect. We can see that it's live. It's got a green button on it, so I know this is on air. And of course, this is just a web browser that you're seeing here. This is a web browser. The fact I'm right next to the same device doesn't really need to be that way. I could be, if I'm not particularly, if the person operating the camera is not particularly technical, or they could just turn up, as long as they get this onto the internet, this goes off to find Mothership and says that I'm here, and then it just means that someone else, if they've got the 3 words, who could be setting up the whole technical event, they could have 5 of these, they could quickly go on there, pair the 5 different devices, and they'd all be live, and then whoever's setting up the configuration could be choosing what happens to these devices. So of course today we want to demonstrate camera to cloud. So all we do simply is we have these devices. I've got this Shogun Connect listed here. There's a button here that says add destination. So that's really just choosing, okay, I'm connected, where do I want to go? So we have a selection here. You then suddenly open up, and of course you'll only get this once you're connected to the internet, so you know that this bit is going to work. We can connect to Frame.io, which is obviously our original camera to cloud partner. We just launched with Sony C Media. But you could actually, if you wanted to, you could actually use the same device, the same setup, and I could stream to social media. I could stream to YouTube Live if I wanted to, or any custom RTMP destination. So really it is very, very powerful. Before I connect to Frame.io, I also mentioned about the live shows. You could literally take the same device, and this is on the config side, I could add this as one of my 4 camera inputs into a live show. So the beauty is that you can use the Atomos device as this Swiss Army knife. You could be using it as a monitor recorder one day. You could be using it as an assist tool because it's a lovely screen. You could be streaming from it one day. You could be doing camera to cloud the other day. You could be going into a live production virtualized in the cloud. So there's so many different stuff that you can do now that we've made our devices connected. So anyway, so let's just go back here again, and let's just choose Frame.io as our destination. So what happens now is we have to go off to Frame.io to sort of auth ourselves with Frame to prove, and I've got a Frame.io account for camera to cloud. Now the important point is that actually if people have got Adobe subscriptions already, then that would actually include camera to cloud. So you can start with camera to cloud if you've already got an Adobe subscription. So I've already got an Adobe, I've got my camera to cloud account here. Let me just log in. And again, we only need to pair this once. This is just a way of making sure that everything is secure. We know exactly where our content is going, because that's super important to know where our content is going. So now I've now typed in both sets of passwords, because obviously I've already logged into Atomos Cloud Studio in my account, and I've now logged into Frame.io. And it now has connected the 2 together. And what it's asking me now, it's saying, well, okay, where do I actually want to send the content? So I can see that I'm already looking at Atomos C2C account. That's our sort of generic company account. And I want to choose which project that goes in. So let's just choose Camera to Cloud Paul S, which is me. So I can select that now. And then I can select, I was saying earlier, you can choose the quality of the file that's going to Camera to Cloud. So if we wanted a lower quality, like a 720p or a lower bitrate file, because we just wanted to get content as quick as possible, maybe we didn't have such good internet, or we know that we're going to replace it with the high-res file later, then of course we would go for the lower setting. We would maybe go for 720p, and we could just do 3 megabits per second on the low setting. Or we could go high, and we could do 30 megabits per second at 1080p. But let's just keep it somewhere in the middle, and we'll just save that setting. So what we can see now is that on my screen, so obviously, say, if you're looking at 2 different places, I've just got a Connect tab that says I'm in Frame.io camera to cloud mode, and my destination, because I've set it, is C2C Paul S. So the user who's filming can see exactly where the content is going, which obviously is super important, and the person that's configured it all can see where it's going. I think if I just go on back to the presentation, we can maybe look at some case studies of how this works in practice. So there are 3 sort of case studies that we've done recently that have worked really, really well for camera to cloud. And this first one is wedding event videography. And that's really where I was saying earlier about you're not needing to relink it to super high res 4K ProRes footage, but you want to be able to get edit together on the same day. So a wedding is a great example of that, where you want to start shooting and you want to get all the content. You want the high res, of course, to do something with later, but it'd be nice to edit a whole package together in a teaser package, maybe for the reception, which is in 3 or 4 hours' time. And that's exactly what we've got here. And all these case studies, if you go on to atomos.com and then maybe link to the Atomos YouTube channel, you can see all the behind the scenes for all this stuff. And it is super impressive. And this particular workflow is one that we're seeing really expanding for the use of camera to cloud, where you have these events and you just want to get teaser footage or something else onto social, or to show the client partway through the day. The other one that we've got, which is another one which is more in fashion commercials. So there's we did this one here, which is a sort of a fashion shoot. We also did one with Ralph Lauren, which was another fashion shoot. And again, the concept with that was to record in high res, but to get stuff out that could be edited later, but to get stuff out almost immediately. So with this one, and particularly with the Ralph Lauren, they were showing a whole new season of clothes, and within 15 minutes of that new season being shown to the world, they had some really nicely edited clips on social media, on Instagram, with a nice LUT and color applied to it. It was all nicely graded, and within 15 minutes the people around the world could see the live immediacy of the event. So this sort of fashion stroke corporate launch type event is another perfect example for camera to cloud. I guess one of our most sort of largest scale, most impressive camera to cloud usage was actually in January this year, and most of you probably heard of the Sundance Festival, and it's in Salt Lake City in the US, and for the first time they used the whole camera to cloud technology. They partnered with Atomos, they partnered with Adobe on the editing side, and they partnered with Canon for the cameras. And effectively for this, it's the Sundance Festival is spread over the whole of Salt Lake City, so there are many locations, many different events, lots of things happening all throughout the day, but they always have to create lots and lots of packages from that event, edit them into packages, and then they show them on digital channels, as well as showing them to the local audience in the theatres. So it's a huge event. And previously, until this year, they would have to do that in the very manual way of like we have done for years, is you either take tapes or media out of the device. They would have to edit all night long, and then as soon as possible, they would then get the content out in the relevant places. But for this year, with the camera to cloud setup, there were 13 of these crews, all with the Ninja 5, so they had the smaller one with some Canon cameras, and 13 of those, all with a mobile backpack, so they had basically a 4G, 5G bonded solution, so they could use the local cellular data and then create either an Ethernet or a Wi-Fi connection to the Connect product. And they were bringing in loads of content over the whole course of the 4 or 5 days for the festival. 40 gig was uploaded to Frame.io for these packages. And for the first time, I think they had an editor in Salt Lake City itself, but they had another editor in either LA or San Francisco, I can't remember. But they had 2 editors working in tandem, seeing all the content coming in, and they'd split it up as to who was going to edit what, and they could get these packages out and done really quickly. And they were super pleased because they were literally packed up by 11 o'clock in the evening, whereas they literally would have had to go all the way through the night, every single night. So for this time, they were literally all packed up at 11 o'clock, and all of the crew and the way that the production team said they wouldn't go back to anything else, because it was obvious that this was literally the way to work. And we've seen this at a few of the trade shows recently with a lot of the content, interviews and things that are done at the trade shows. We did some with Atomos at NAB this year, where you can go around and get lots of interesting flavors of the show using camera to cloud technology with your favorite camera, and get that content edited really quickly by someone else in a different location and out there.